Puck time for February 3rd. It is Monday, and we're here to break down 3 games, props, sides, totals, best bets, all kinds of great promotional stuff right here on WagerTalk TV. Andrew and Carmine, just the two of us, as we usually do on Mondays and Fridays. Carm, every single game on the board, besides one, with a 5.5 as the total. I do believe so. We've been seeing a lot of those 5.5s, and that means, well, the games are tight. It means these teams are competing for playoff spots, and it means every single goal matters. So, looking at this time last year, we were seeing 6s, 6.5s, now 5.5s. A lot of defensive hockey being expected, or maybe just the goaltending has been a lot better from both the starters and the backups. Who knows? But a lot of great games today with some playoff implications. How are you, man? How was your weekend?
I'm good. Just replying to one of the guys, Hal, and the chat, the 6 and 60 had many flat tires in it, Andrew. I think I won the first one. Normally it's lose the first game of the 6 and 60, the matinee one, and then everything goes well. This was the complete reverse. Everything was right. The totals, you have over 6, it lands on 5. You have a team losing it over time. It happens, unfortunately, but man, the playoff races are heating up. We were just talking about it. Your Montreal Canadiens, who we're not going to talk about today, and yes, they are your Montreal Canadiens. You and Don Buster and Rob Braley own pieces of it, but they're 3 points out of a playoff spot? Can you guys imagine in this here in Canada, north of the border, the two most hated franchises against each other, fan bases, Toronto and Montreal, there's an avenue where they could meet in the first round of the playoffs if the Leafs win the Eastern Conference and Montreal slips into that 8th wildcard spot. Plenty of hockey to play before then, Andrew, but I would love to see you and Prez absolutely lose for lack of a better word, your shit with the first round meeting between these two teams. But again, there's plenty of hockey going on. Washington, who we're going to talk about today, 3-game losing streak. Talking to some people, and they're wondering, is regression setting in? We'll talk about that. I don't think there is, but we'll get to that. We're going to talk Tampa and Florida, the two hottest teams in the NHL. We're going to follow it up with the 2 teams that are the capitals of each nation, Washington and Ottawa. Your playlist, Andrew, some winning props, and then the Battle of New York. The first one finished 5-1 Rangers, and now they are home on the second of a back-to-back hosting the Islanders, who somehow found 7 goals in their last game against Nashville. A little bit of a surprise there, and hopefully a couple free plays at the end that we can make some money off of. But a quiet weekend, more or less. 1-2 on Saturday in NHL, 4-1 yesterday. Some prop bets along the way, and a best bet tonight in the NHL that I like. So you can get that over at WagerTalk. And big week ahead, Andrew. Any thoughts on the weekend in those trades? We saw some trades.
I'll just say this. It kind of bugs me sometimes when you see a player that is like complaining about being in a situation that they're in, and then they just get to go to the defending Stanley Cup champions. That's Seth Jones. That bothers me a little bit, but apparently talking shit about your team to the media after a game gets you a trade to the best team in the league. So he might not be fitting in well with the locker room anymore over there in Chicago. But the way he talked badly about his team, Carm, got him a trade. And guess what? He said to Chicago, I only want to be traded to Dallas or Florida. And they said, say less. We'll take you right to Florida. And then there you go. I mean, 2 of the best teams in the league. But he had them. And you know what? I think the haul was pretty good. They got back a really high draft pick and Spencer Knight. And the thing is, Spencer Knight hasn't really gotten to have much time over the years because obviously Sergei Bobrovsky has been so good for the Panthers. So I really enjoyed looking at some of these possible trades, but I'm looking forward to seeing some actually happen over the next couple of days here, of course, with the trade deadline being on Friday. As we know, Carmen, a lot of times the trades end up happening before trade deadline day, and we haven't really seen as many on the actual deadline as we did kind of many years ago. So wouldn't be shocked to see a couple of trades over the next few days.
I think there's going to be, and I'm going to throw this one at you because you're an East Coast guy. Is it Cole Harbor where McKinnon and Crosby are from? Um, so I'm watching some of the games this weekend, and some of the guys who I respect during the intermission shows. There are a few of them, and the discussion was Sidney Crosby. Now, if you're a Pens fan, and I know we have Pens fans that follow the show, that watch the show, that comment in the live comments and afterwards, if you're a Pens fan and you can get something, I know you want Sidney Crosby to retire with the team, but they've missed the playoffs 2 consecutive years. It's going to be 3 this season because I don't see them getting in, and I don't think the prospects for them moving forward to next year are that much better just because of a lot of cap tied money. But he got a taste, Andrew, of playoff hockey in the Four Nations Cup, and you have to feel that he goes to management and says, I'm okay with you guys moving me if you move me to similarly one of these teams that you can get something back, because he's thinking of the franchise as well too. That's why he didn't want to leave last year. He's thinking of the franchise. Get some draft picks or something for him that the Penguins can then use, Kyle Dubas can then use, and maybe get rid of some of that salary that they need to get rid of. And maybe Sid goes out on a loaner. Maybe he's just a loaner for the last 20 games of the NHL season to a playoff-bound team, brings playoff experience to them in the playoffs, and then returns to the Pittsburgh Penguins for a final season, his last hurrah before he retires. But if you're Sid or if you're Pittsburgh, give me both angles before we get into this first game. Do you request a trade? Because whenever you hear a player request a trade, you think it's the player. What a horrible thing to do, request a trade. He's given up on his team. He's not. Sid's the kind of guy I have to believe that wants to make sure the Penguins are taken care of if a trade is made.
Well, that's just the thing is whenever people bring it up to him, he just keeps on saying, I don't know why you guys keep talking about this. I'm not going anywhere. I think it will have to be the team that leads the discussion, and then he can say, okay, it wasn't my idea. He'll never want anybody to think it was his idea. But at the end of the day, Carm, people will say, sure, Jim Rutherford didn't do a great job, but you know how I feel about Kyle Dubas. You know how I feel about those contracts he signed over there in Toronto for some of the Maple Leaf players. I mean, what he's done to the Pittsburgh Penguins hasn't been able to build anything around Malkin and Crosby. I mean, look at Washington, what they've been able to do. You know, Ovechkin and Crosby were rivals for, all of my life pretty much. And now one team is one of the best teams in the league. One team just can't seem to win every single night, and that goal the Maple Leafs scored yesterday, Matthew Nyes, with 0.1 seconds left on the clock. Crosby wins the face-off clean. Carlson passes the puck over to somebody. Nyes intercepts it, goes down the ice and scores. Doesn't that just describe the Pittsburgh season in a nutshell? That one 5-second clip. Here's the deal. I think my thoughts are that if Crosby didn't win 3 cups already, he would have already been gone. That's kind of the way I think about it. He wants to follow the Mario Lemieux. He wants to be that guy. Doesn't leave Pittsburgh and kind of represents the city. I think that if he only had 1 Stanley Cup under his belt or something like that, he would be gone already. But the fact that they won a back-to-back cups, they won another cup, so he's got 3. And I think one thing kind of interesting too, Carm, is that both Crosby, Letang, and Malkin are kind of like this trio that they've all kind of almost did a little pinky swear that they're not going to leave, and so it's but how much can they go through? Because to your point, if they leave, it could help the team long term. And that's the thing too. And you mentioned the Four Nations tournament, getting a chance to play with some, let's be honest, some elite players again for Crosby had to feel good. I'd love to see him back in the playoffs, man. That's all I'm saying. I just don't want to see him rot for the last 5 years of his career. It would just be a real shame. So, everybody here and where I live would love to see him play for the Avalanche or somewhere like that. But I heard that his childhood favorite team was Montreal. Just saying.
Uh, yeah. Well, a lot has to happen for that to go through, but because Montreal's not selling off talent, they're trying to rebuild. They're doing it kind of the right way, sort of like what Anaheim's doing, San Jose is doing. Collecting draft picks and the LA Kings did it as well too, and they're having a good season. So we shall see. There's a lot of valuable stuff in Pittsburgh that they could sell off, but it's they can't be taken. And this is Kyle Dubas. This is on him. You can't be taken to the woodshed on these deals where they're losing deals for you. That you need to accumulate some assets from teams that are willing to pay, maybe pay a little too much, because the cup this year is, I think, the cup is up for grabs. There's at least a good 8 teams that you can
Mhm.
make a case for winning the cup this year. So of the 16, so we'll see how that goes. And then I'm going to throw out this little tidbit, Andrew, and then I'm going to go to the first game. I'm going to let you mull this one over. There's no answer needed. Carolina Hurricanes picked up Rantanen in that deal. I say Rantanen ends up back on the West Coast with the LA Kings. I say that is a trade deadline deal that will be made. So we'll see if that happens, because he hasn't really prospered yet in Carolina, and he hasn't looked good. I'll say it. He has not looked good. He hasn't fit the model of that team. All right, Tampa Bay, Florida. Andrew, 9-0-1 Tampa Bay their last 10 games. Florida, 8-2-0 their last 10 games. The two hottest teams in the NHL coming from Florida right now. Minus 140 Florida, Tampa plus 120 for a team that has not lost in regulation in 10 straight games. Totals at 5.5. What do you like here?
Yeah, I mean, look, you read out those numbers for the last 10 games for both teams. Extremely impressive for what they're both doing right now. And I'll tell you, and people thought that, and I was included, that some of these teams like Tampa, like Florida, the head players competing in the Four Nations tournament would struggle out of that Four Nations break. And that's been the exact opposite. But I'll tell you, Carm, I give the most credit to the Panthers. I really do. I mean, I've been kind of hyping up the Lightning the past couple of weeks here on Puck Time, but because I felt like they were kind of undervalued. But this Panthers team doing it without Kachuk, doing it without some players. I'm not happy the fact that they're putting him on LTIR. They now have like $8 million in cap space to go do the exact thing that Tampa used to do and the exact same thing that Vegas has been doing. That doesn't make me very happy, as you can probably tell. But one thing I like when I look at this Lightning team is no matter what type of team they've been playing the exact same type of hockey. They play a really strong Capitals team. They only give up one goal. They play a mediocre Flames team that's, a fringe playoff team. They shut them out. Whether it's been the Oilers, the Kraken, the Red Wings, the Canadians, whoever it's been, they have had zero, and I mean zero letdown spots. There haven't seemed to really be a spot that this team has looked a little bit different than their previous games. So that's the thing, is I've been impressed by the Panthers. I've been seeing what they've been able to do without Matthew Tkachuk in the lineup. But when I look at this game, I look at that low-scoring victory that the Lightning are coming off of. I think that I'm a little more impressed with them right now. I think that, yes, sure, it's great to see what the Panthers are doing without Kachuk, but overall, I like the style of hockey this Tampa Bay Lightning's team is playing. A lot of times when you talk about the battle of the Sunshine State, we talk about the last change, how crucial that has been. But Carm, if we look around lately, a lot of times when these teams are doing these home and homes, and you and I are going to find out tonight with our Sabres and Canadians, the home ice hasn't really mattered that much. It really hasn't with these home and homes and when these teams play each other very often. How much can we really put into that? In fact, Brian Leonard talks a lot about it in the playoffs, that there's more value, of course, on the road team because you're getting that team just a little bit of a better price than you would if they were playing at home. So I'm going to take Tampa Bay, the team that I think has more depth right now, the team I think that has more shutdown lines. And I think they're a team that I can trust more players to make an impact. And I still think that with Florida, there are fewer players that I can trust to make an impact on the game. So one team's big streak comes to an end tonight, Carm, but I think Tampa stays hot. And I'll tell you what, Toronto has to be thrown into that mix as well. I mean, all three of those teams since the Four Nations break, unbelievable. And the funny thing is Ottawa was number 3 in the Atlantic Division just like a couple weeks ago. Number 3. And now all of a sudden they are not even in a playoff spot. That's how intense this division is right now, this whole Eastern Conference playoff race, that a team can be number 3 in their division and not even be in a playoff spot. Tampa Bay was right next to the Montreal Canadiens. They were like 1 or 2 points apart for like a week. And now they go on this massive streak. That's what good teams do. So small play for me here on Tampa Bay on the highway. And yes, probably is the highway. I doubt they're flying. So hopefully they can get the job done. Are you on a side here, Carm, or the total?
No, I'm going to look at the total, but Andrew, you talk about like the Atlantic Division, and it is as tight as you can get. You have the Leafs on 78 points. You have Florida, who played a game more than Toronto.